All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Optimal Self Conversations, where we talk to incredible people who, through adversity, grit, and persistence, are forging the path to being the best version of themselves. And y'all are so lucky because they join us and they give you the tools to do the same. This week, I am extremely honored. Man, we have Dave is coming on with us. And listen, his bio is unbelievable, but I'm just going to give you a little piece of it. He's truly fueled by his passion for entrepreneurship and human performance. So those of you guys that listen know that hits home with me. He launched Effic, which is an innovative leadership development company that helps busy entrepreneurs maximize their impact and freedom. And if that's not enough, he also sums up his methodology in his best-selling book, Done by Noon, How to Achieve More by Noon Than Other Entrepreneurs in a Whole Day or Full Day. So, Dave, man, I am honored. Thank you so much for joining us today, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good, Jeremy. How are you?
Man, super excited, bro. It's cool when it's the beautiful thing about this new virtual world and podcasting world is that people come across and we cross paths with people, and you and I were talking pre-show. Here I am in Southern California. And so tell the people where you are and how you got started in this little journey of entrepreneurship and in the book and everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, man. I'm in New Brunswick, Canada. So I was telling you before we started going live, we're radically opposed geographically within North America, right? So New Brunswick, the province of New Brunswick, is right up Maine, right? So we're the border from Maine, but I'm in the northern part of New Brunswick. So it's like a 5-hour drive for me to hit, Maine, and it's very rural community here, rural spot. And I've been this specific, like where I built my house. I've been living here for 9 years now. So I'm right on the river. I'm in deep wooded area, and yeah, man, we're good.
Good nature, man, right? Like get out there and get into nature. Yeah.
I love it. So second part of your question was like, how did that get started?
Because listen, like I was telling you, like our listener is very much about the person behind the microphone, about the person behind the book, about the person behind the program that they're teaching is how did this come about for you? What are the things in your life that led you to say, oh man, there's got to be a better way and let's find it?
Yeah, I think, going back, academically, I was not the best student, and not that I was bad at school, but it was like the framework was not like good for me. And I always struggle, like for me, like just the fact of memorizing things and just, saying them back. I don't get that. Right. So, I had kind of a hard time academically. I was like, there must be another way. And, fitness was my passion. I started training in my teen years, then moved on more seriously in my early 20s. Ended up competing in bodybuilding in my 20s, and Chris, you know how it is when you that whole world. It's easy to get obsessed with it, and I was absolutely obsessed with fitness. And the traditional path in fitness, that you become like a trainer and a coach and things like that. But I never really enjoyed that per se. It's like, again, there must be a better way. And during a show, I'll tell you how I stumbled into entrepreneurship. I was competing in Newfoundland, and there was a message board online because there were like forums, back in the days, and I was broke at the time. I didn't have any money, and I posted in that message board like, "Listen, I'm traveling to Newfoundland to compete. Is there any competitive people like who compete who'd like to share a room for the weekend?" Because I was traveling there, and so that guy named Lee Hayward answers the emails like, "Yeah, man, I'm competing too, but I'm local. You can come and stay at my house. I got a couch in the basement. Just come and hang out." Like, perfect. Didn't know Lee at all. So I show up to this place, and anyway, the conversation is, and like I ask him what he's doing for a living, and he's telling me that how he's been running that bodybuilding blog for like almost a decade, and is generating 6 figures a year. And I was like, whoa, okay, hold on, I need to know more about this. So anyway, he started like introducing me to direct response marketing, copywriting, I mean, we're talking 2007, which like is what 14 years ago, but 14 years in internet years is like 155 years, right? It's super long time. And but I started getting more interested into that. And in 2009, I actually went full time online with a website that was named The Muscle Cook. So we were providing recipes and nutrition tips and plans for people like who wanted to build muscle and lose body fat. We built our best-selling products were cookbooks. So we had cookbooks that we sold. They're still selling today, crazy, but they still generate some coins daily. And so from there I moved on, obviously evolved to I would say, I didn't identify as an entrepreneur. At that point it was like, I have a business in the fitness space, and from there people were seeing what I was doing, and I had more requests to work with like coaches who had like audiences, like on YouTube, for example, but wanted to monetize. It's like these people who have a lot of people on Instagram but don't make money. Well, at the time I was like, okay, I have a blog, I have this, but I'm not making money. So I was coming in and helping them, develop that and build different partnerships. Over time, ended up investing in a supplements company in 2014. Company's named Bioptimizers. So when I bought in, actually, the company was not named Bioptimizers. We rebranded and brought it back to life. It was an older company, but needed a little bit more, TLC and organization and rebrand. So what I did, sold my shares of the company in 2016. And at that time, I had the opportunity to start coaching entrepreneurs. So I same thing, kind of like out of request, people like, okay, well, you're doing that online stuff. We want to learn how you're doing that. Can you coach us? And it was that group that I started coaching. And I realized, typically I started like sharing strategies and tactics, things like that. But what I realized that these guys didn't need any more tactics or strategies. What they needed is actually tools to help them manage themselves, and as any entrepreneur, I struggled with that early on in my career, and I developed the tools. Most of them were like kind of based from like coming from the sports performance background, the way I was organizing my workload and my schedule, etc. And I started sharing these tools with them. They loved it. Great success. Started like, selling a little bit more like the planners, which was the Effic Planner, which was our first product. And things started to, I guess, pick up like that. And Effic was born. And now so the methodology, all my systems and everything that I had built for myself became a full methodology. And now we're actually certifying coaches on that methodology. So business coaches or trainers can come and take the certification, and they have all the tools they need to teach them themselves. So I'm not coaching anymore. Like I still have a little bit mentorship here and there, very informal, but I don't coach. So now we let other coaches benefit from what we do.
Okay, so I have to slow this down for a second, because you gave us so much. And I want to unpack it a little bit for people that are listening, because we're, just like your business, like we talked about, we're all about those action steps, but really, again, the mindset. And you said something in there that I wanted people to go back, and I want to dig in a little bit. You said framework of school. You see, because you and I are 100% in agreement on this, is that the education system, schools per se, it teaches us the wrong thing. And what I mean by that is it teaches us to get a good grade, not to learn, because learning is not the answer here. The answer is getting a good grade. So we just figure out a way to get a good grade, as opposed to actually learn the information, to take the information that I can now learn and I can apply to my life. So when we get into the real world, the same thing you're talking about with entrepreneurs and people that want in business, even people that are doing jobs right now, because again, there are going to be people listening to this that aren't entrepreneurs, that don't want to have a business or whatever. But you said something else that you kind of glossed over it, because it's something that I think comes very natural to you, which is this. And I want people to really understand this, is that you said, okay, I went in, I wanted to compete in bodybuilding. So anybody who knows what that takes, the discipline that it takes to eat, to train, to manage your day, because most people are adults and they have lives, maybe families, maybe kids. And so there's an amazing discipline to that. But here's what I want people to really get from this is that you took that and then it came into these cookbooks and then it came into these things. And what I tell people all the time, and I want you to elaborate on this, is that people in jobs right now, people in their situation where they're like, I hate my job, I hate my life, right? We hear this all the time. That's why they want to be an entrepreneur, right? That's why they want to jump into it. But what they fail to realize is this, is that be great at what you do. Because everything that you just said, you said, oh, I was doing this and then this happened. Oh, and then I was doing that and this happened. Yeah. Because it leads to the next thing. It's not like you set out to be like, I'm going to be some great coach and write books and do all this kind of stuff. Probably never even crossed your mind. But when you really, really dig in and you give maximum effort, you actually do that thing. We call it 100-0 in here. Give it 100 or don't fucking do it. Don't do it. You give it 100. So when you go at it, and then guess what? When you're great at something, it opens the next door.
Yes.
And when you're great at something, it opens the next door. And that's what I heard from you right there is I'm like, oh man, so beautiful.
Always. Yeah, I think with success comes opportunities, but success only comes when you're aligned with what you should be doing. I think, people same thing, there's so many parallels between, sports and entrepreneurship. If you're trying to take shortcuts in sports, let's say everybody worked out, let's say you worked out, everybody does the same mistakes at first. They try to take all the supplements in the world, but they're not willing to put in the work or being consistent with their workouts, their nutrition, and understanding that it's a long-term, game, right? It's a long-term thing. And it's only when you do that you see results, and it's not getting the shortcuts. And the fun thing now is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a buzzword now. Being an entrepreneur, it's I say everybody wants to be one, but I think not everybody understands what it really is. The book Unbinding is really about that too, is that when you start a business, you think it's going to be a certain way, and you go in business for freedom. So I would say there's three types of freedom. There's time freedom, there's creative freedom, and there's the financial freedom. And you think that I'm going to have that freedom by having a business, but it's rarely the case. You might have some of it at one point, and then it's going to be a juggling act. And it's not as easy or rosy as we think it is. It's actually very tough, and it requires the same amount of alignment in order to unlock opportunities. You need to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. And if you're just doing it for, let's say, the money, you're not going to have these opportunities these doors that are going to be opening, because it's short-sighted. I think creative freedom is for me anyway, as entrepreneurship is I would say the door open to creative freedom. And when my creation is aligned with the way I see life and the type of life that I want for myself, doors open, and it changes, there's things that I'm interested in now that I was not interested in, 5 years ago, heck, even 1 or 2 years ago. And it's when I do that and I align and I course correct, my alignment changes because there's always new things that I like, but I got to fall. I'd say I was lucky to be born with a good internal compass who tells me, the gut feeling, if it's good or if it's not. And the times that I neglected to listen to my gut feeling, to my intuition, this is when things went wrong, because I was being not too strategic, but I was not following the course because I didn't understand, I was like, no, it doesn't make sense. Your head is not there to tell you what's right or what's wrong. It's really what's inside. And once you have that alignment, and now I follow my instincts 110% now. I've learned my lessons and I follow that. But, yeah, dude, it only happens when you're aligned, period.
So how do we So the listener that's sitting there right now, because I've had them, because I'm sure we'll get. I already know. You know how like you do these enough where you know the questions that are going to come. They're like, okay, Dave. Well, then how do I get in alignment? Right? How do I find my alignment? How do I know that my internal compass is pointing in the right direction so that I can follow my instincts? Right?
Sometimes you have to get lost, right, in order to find yourself. It's often the case because humans are not that great at being proactive with this type of stuff, right? We usually like react to something. Like I think every single actions that we take are like guided by something else in some ways, right? When you started working out because what you wanted to, someone told you were not good enough, or that you were small, or you were bullied, or things like that, and that triggered that, and then that triggered something else, and then it just continuous. I would say continuous pattern in some ways. But I think, first of all, I think everybody should get lost at one point in their careers or multiple times in order to find their path. The key critical questions that we have, like I've built within, the Effic methodology, I've built simple frameworks in order to get that realignment. And there's 2 steps for alignment. So number 1 is like understanding the big picture. Okay, well, be honest with yourself. What type of life do you want? Like when you're on the top of the mountain, what does that look like? And when you turn around and look back, what are you looking at? And once you understand that, and you never know, because it's like it's a game of perspective. The more you move forward, the more you see things. You see this mountain, but the more you move forward, oh, there's another one, and there's another one. Your perspective changes, right? And that, I think that's what time does. As if you're a father, if you're a spouse, if you're your life changes and evolves, and you're gaining that perspective from the experiences that you have. So it's important to understand that, but I feel like your values never really change. Your deep core values never really change, but they tend to be clearer with time. I'm heading into my 40s now, and I'm like, it's very clear what I want and I do not want, but I didn't know that before, right? So you have to experience. So once you have that vision, you understand that, you visualize that from your own point that you are right now. Now, the only thing you can do is look into the next 12 months and say, okay, well, what are the things that I want to see become a reality within the next 12 months, right? So from there, we ask you to do a list of 5 items, and these are your goals for the next 12 months. And then we work in 90-day cycles. This is the way you would do if like you want to compete in bodybuilding, for example. When I wanted to compete in bodybuilding, I was envisioning the type of physique that I really wanted to do. I was like, okay, well, this year I need to focus more on building muscle, for example. And then every quarter, it was like, okay, well, let's have this training program for the next 90 days where I'm going to be focusing. Let's say I want to look wider, so I'm going to focus on my delts a lot more and my lats, so things like that. But it's always in line, the 90 days are in line with the 1-year plan. And the 1-year plan is in line with the big picture. Sure. So it's always asking yourself the right questions. In the book, we ask 13 questions in the book that you have to answer, and then you can create that like big picture story. And that's your first point of alignment, and you work it out from there.
Well said. That's so beautiful. And we have similar, I love it. So, and it's something that you'll probably, we do an assessment, right? And assessing somebody is the same thing. Like, somebody walks in, it's easy for us to talk about weight, right? They come in, they're overweight, and they want to lose 80 pounds, 100 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever the number is. And you sit with them, and after you figure out, okay, what are the health problems? What are we dealing with, right? What kind of injuries or joint problems? We know all the different things that we got to address. And then we go right to what you said, which I hope people heard this, is the big picture. But here's the thing. Most people can't see that person. When you say, okay, close your eyes, those 80 pounds are off of you. Mm-hmm. What are you wearing? Is your hair up or is it down? Is it a dress? What shoes do you have on? What earrings are you wearing? What perfume are you wearing? Where are you going that night to celebrate? And you're looking in the mirror at her, at him, right? And when you do that, and people at home, when you're listening, whatever that goal is, it doesn't have to be a weight loss goal. It could be a business goal. It could be a financial goal. I love where you went with time, creative, and financial, the three freedoms. But I want people to understand is that if it doesn't move you, if you can't see that person, not that you don't need to lose those 80 pounds, but the poundage won't keep you motivated. Because if it doesn't move you, and I've had this happen with a lady, I had this lady and she couldn't see it. I asked her the question, okay, what were you wearing? She's like, I think, I don't know. There's a pair of jeans that I like. I'm not sure. I'm like, well, then this is not important to you. Mm-hmm. It's not. You see, it goes back to what you said about alignment. And then she said this to me, Dave, and you'll appreciate this. I go, well, is there anything in your life that you just haven't accomplished, that you just wanted, something that still eats at you? And she goes, I came into your gym, Jeremy, and I saw women out there doing pull-ups. I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that happens, right? And she goes, I want to do a fucking pull-up.
Boom.
I was always the girl in gym class that couldn't do it. Never, ever, ever. Mm-hmm. She said, I want to grab that bar and I want to do a damn pull-up. I said, okay, now we're talking. Right? Yeah. So you go out there and you write that. That's your goal. That's the big picture. Yeah. The big picture is pulling my ass up over that bar. That's the big picture, right? And then we break it down. Okay, we got to make sure your shoulders are articulating correctly, right? Can I pull? Is the scapula moving correctly, right? She had some shoulder issues, some impingement that we need to work on, all these different things, right? But now every time she walked in, guess what we said to her? Hey, you're one day closer to that pull-up. You showed up again. Showed up again. You're one day closer to that pull-up. You're one day closer. Every day, you're just that little bit closer. Again, just like you said, right? And we were in alignment. So guess what naturally happened? She ate better.
Yeah.
The weight is falling off of her. But the weight is no longer the goal, right? Because the bigger picture, she couldn't see that picture. But could you see yourself pulling your ass up over that bar? She's like, hell yeah. I know I can already imagine what it's going to feel like. I can imagine what's going to taste like. I can imagine you know what I mean? Like what it's going to smell like up over that bar. Like all those senses now are heightened in there. Right. And those are the things I want people to understand. Exactly what you just said, Dave, is that you've got to get in alignment. You've got to be able to see the bigger picture. You've got to be able to see your future self. You got to see that thing happening. Yeah. So then as we break it down into the smaller steps, now you're going to show up every day.
You're emotionally involved into the process, you know,
man.
And that's important. I feel like it's so easy to get lost. And this, another thing we talk in the book is talk about ambition appropriation. And it's just like looking at other people and thinking that that's the way, what I should be doing. And it's not, for her, it was doing the pull-up. And the reason for being, doing the pull-up is that it was a story of redemption. It was a story. It's like, you know what? You told me I couldn't do it. I'll do it. I'll show you. Anytime that's my own way of doing things. But whenever I'm in this position, I tend to perform better, or I tend to have all of it, because you're putting in the underdog seat. And it's like, it's a mindset. It's a story that you're telling yourself. That's just what it is. But you're telling yourself this story. And I love working from that perspective of being the underdog. You told me I couldn't do it. I'll do it, and I use that towards my, everything that I did, I think important in my life, I was in that type of mindset, and I love that. But you got to recreate it without self-sabotaging that. Sometimes it's easy to just trying to get back into it. It needs to be naturally fitting in some ways,
Very, very good point. Yes, I love that. Hers was redemption, and that was right. It was, and again, it's the internal narrative, though, right? It's her version. Because if you met her, you would never know that, right? Yeah. You would never know that was something that meant something to her. That's always been like, man, if I could have done, right? And I think from us, so. One of the things I love, Dave, is researching you and even, now speaking with you, what I hear is, and this is very important to me. And I tell people all the time, I am never, ever going to ask you to do something that I have not already done. My hands are dirty, right? I have bled and I have sweat. And so can you talk more about the methodology? Not just, I mean, again, of course we want to give it to the people, but also how it affects you, like how it came to be that you were figuring these things out along the way and you were like, oh shit, this is going to help other people too. Let me get this out there because that's basically how Optimal Self was born as well. So I love that about you, man. I love that, but talk a little bit more about that.
But I never realized that it would actually help other people. That's the thing until he actually did. Like, it's like, for example, when I launched the cookbooks, like I didn't even know that was what's going to be our first like real, online success was that, because I come from, doing nutrition plans and workouts, and like for you, that's what it is. But the unique thing that we were doing is that our meal plans were never bland. Like it was always based on recipes we had developed, and people loved that because it was a lot easier, to follow a meal plan and even diet down. And we use that with like national level athletes too. Like, it doesn't need to be boring. And I never realized for me, like, I'm going to do this on purpose. And I remember I had that it was called Dave's Nutrition and Food Bible. And it was just like a collection of recipes that I had. And I was like, okay, well, you like chicken, this, and you like this, I'm going to give you that. And then like that collection became, that product. And I realized like, oh, wow, okay. A lot of people have this problem, and I'm actually solving a way bigger problem than I thought. And it was the same thing with Effic, the tools that I had built for myself, realizing that I guess, that's the way I operate. Okay, I face a problem. I'm going to try to fix it by finding a system that works, but it works for me. I was like, that's just for me. But then you realize that, there like a lot of people have the same problem, right? And that's exactly how it worked with the methodology and the planner and what I explained in the book, right? So it was never intended or strategic to create something for other people than myself. It was just for me. That's it. And then I realized that, hey, it serves other people. And from there, I reacted to a demand. That's all. Like that was every single thing that went well in my entrepreneurial career. That's how it happened.
Yeah, I love that.
I fixed my own problem, and selfishly, but because I never thought about, solving other people's problems. It's only when it happened that I had to help other people. So like, okay, well, I have some tools that can help you. You know what I mean? And here they are.
Man, that's such that's a true statement, though. There's those memes and things that go on out there that. Can you hear your phone?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Hold on. I gotta close it down. All right. Sorry, bud. Forgot to turn that off. It's turned up on my computer. That's fine. Like it's linked with my computer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to find a way to shut it.
Like, oh no. It has a way to do that, right? Like, it is. No. So I want to make sure that people heard what you said, is that because part of Optimal Self and part of what we in our programs as well as what we teach is you cannot possibly help other people if you're not helping yourself, right? Yeah. It goes the same way. You can't tell your kid to go make their bed if your bed's not made, right? Yeah. And there's a great affirmation that you kind of made reference to in the way you said it, but it says the best gift that I can give to others is to fulfill my potential so that I can show them how to fulfill theirs. Mm-hmm. And basically that's what you were doing. You were like, oh man, I need to get this better for me. And then based on what you needed, based on what you had, there are other people that you could show it to. But the only way to do that is by you doing it first. Yeah. And people, Dave, this is where I think people miss the boat, is they think that that's selfish, that I'm doing it for me. But the truth is, the selfish part would be if you didn't share it.
Yeah.
The selfish part is not for you to be better. The selfish part is not for you to make money. The selfish part is not for you to have a six-pack or, win a bodybuilding competition. That's not selfish. The selfish part would be to gain the knowledge and not give it back. Yeah. That's where the selfishness is. And if we don't if we do not fulfill our potential, if we do not go after our potential, there's no way, then we're just sharing meek, we're sharing average, and nobody wants average because, and I believe this and speak, there's no such thing as average people. There's only average effort.
Oh yes, 100%.
So
and average effort and the lack of consistency. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Stopping. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be bad days. There's going to be days you don't want to do it, but it's looking at it from, again, the big picture. It's like, okay, it's not just doing one thing. It's doing one thing, the compound effect of doing small things right. And I think people lose that. They're like, I think maybe it's a society that wants things without putting in the effort. But in the reality of things, you might have some quick wins here and there, but it's never sustainable, so
right.
You have to put in the sweat into it.
Yeah, it comes back to what you've said the whole time, which is being in alignment. And when you get in alignment again with, it's not that we don't know that doing some form of exercise or movement every day is beneficial, not just to our bodies, but to our brains. Everybody knows that. This is not some breakthrough science that you and I just, stumbled upon. It's like, no, this is, hundreds of years.
That's what it is.
Of human,
what it is
of the human environment, right? Of the evolution of man. Like, listen, every person, if you move, you're going to get benefit. Like, but the thing is, we lock ourselves down is because we're not in alignment. Because again, it goes back to the schooling framework. It's about getting a grade instead of learning. Just like weight loss, it's about a number on a scale instead of being healthy. And when those things don't align, right, we're going after the wrong thing, right? And so, can you speak to more about done by noon and what is it truly that these listeners can walk away with and say, hey, look, again, it could be one thing, because that's how I do it, right? I'm like, no, just give me one. But can you speak a little bit more on that and what the listener can do?
Yeah. So it's really a book for entrepreneurs. So it's really like understanding that we all start a business with the same, the same motivation or the same goal, which is freedom. And I told you the 3 freedoms. But eventually down the road, it's not as you think it is, and you end up drifting. And you end up drifting from the initial intent of why you started your business in the first place. And I ask, so first of all, the title. So there's one thing strategic that I did with that is the title, because the title appeals to that freedom, the thing that you want. Because a lot of people, they wanted to do what they wanted, when they wanted, and to be well paid for it. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. It appeals to what I want, but I don't have it. But when you get in the book, it's really a book about, one, self-leadership, exactly as you said, Chris. It's like, Jeremy, understanding that you have to lead yourself first before becoming a great business owner and serve others in optimum way. But also, it's, I would say, a roadmap for realignment. So understanding, going from the big picture and bringing it down to actually the actions that you need to do. So not only the actions that are going to make you move forward, but the actions as well that are going to make you go forward sustainably, like in a sustainable fashion. So all the habits, the routines, the rituals you need to put in place and safeguarding that as well, which is extremely important. And we show you that. So it's really based on, and it's based on sports science. So we show, periodization and load management as examples of how we operate with that, and how it makes it, I would say, easy. It's easy for people to understand why you should be doing that, and why load management is important, why periodization is important for sustainability, why rest and recovery are important as well, right? And these are things that a lot of people don't know. And, the thing is, entrepreneurs, sometimes it's going to take you 10 years, 15 years to realize that. A lot of people realize that when they burn out, or they're in a dark place that is completely off, the road that they had set for themselves initially. So it helps you really get back to that road and stay on that road and deal with because here's the thing, you're always going to be pulling, drifting in some ways, right? But it's just the frequency of realignment that's going to make it, it's going to make you successful. And the truth is, success is how you define it. I believe entrepreneurship is a great vehicle to be on the road to success. If you're like me, some people like more stability, and that's fine, But I talk to entrepreneurs in this book, and help you, get as aligned as possible. And it's not just about productivity. Obviously, you will be productive as a byproduct, as a consequence of that structure. But it's not a collection of hacks that is going to make you productive. It's just like a collection of exercise. A collection of exercise doesn't make a program. And it's the same thing here. It's not a collection of hacks that makes it a productivity methodology. It is really, different steps that make it something, a structure that can stand, the test of time and trends.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love what you said too and I'm a firm believer of this. There's no such thing as overtraining or overworking as an entrepreneur. It's under recovering, right? We're not taking the time to truly recover. We're not taking those moments. Are there things that you do specifically to recover, to get your mind right, so that when it is is go time, I'm ready, right? Are there things that you use for recovery?
Yeah. So actually training is fantastic for that. So, incorporating physical, exercise into that, because it's funny, I honestly had, when I after my last bodybuilding show, that was in 2010, I had lost that drive, for like performance in some ways. I traded kind of the obsession for fitness with the obsession for business, and my body transformed negatively. Like it was not good. And I realized that it brought a lot of bad things in my life. I was anxious, I was depressed, I was not in a good place. And, I went back into a sustainable way of working out and training. And, as you said, the mental benefits are just incredible. So I work out every day, weekdays. I take my weekends off. So that's one thing. I'm focusing now, heading into my 40s, I'm focusing more on sleep now. So sleep and digestion, and it was never an issue. Growing up, I could digest a rock. I could sleep for 12 hours straight. It's a different story now. So I have to be careful with my nutrition, what I eat, the way I sleep, when I go to bed, etc. I don't take any shortcuts. I want to make sure that, I have a solid base. And those are the things, like the basics. Proper hydration are the things that I do. Regular exercises, trying to, keep my diet 90% clean. I don't do anything like crazy, just 90% clean. I follow the Berardi rules, and time for myself as well. Just trying to. I know how to operate now. I need some type of solitude every day to just reflect. I'm not a big meditation guy or anything like that, but I love to do that. And I practice gratitude every day. Just simple. In the planner we have what we call the reconnection phrase, and you list a gratitude and an element to keep you, aligned with what you truly want. And it works, man. It's nothing crazy. It's in the small things, but keeps yourself in check. And I have 2 young daughters, right? So I have to be very protective of my energy and be careful with that. And that's what I do.
I love it, man. I hope people heard that. Principle 1 in optimal self is hydration. So I love that. And I knew that was coming from you, man, because it's, the brain is over 90% water. The people don't understand the muscles are over 80% water,
That's the number one thing that we, in physical, physical fitness, hydration is number one. And it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. It's like the first thing that we ask people to do is like, here's the first habit you're gonna put in place. You wake up in the morning, you fill up a tall glass of water, you drink it, and then you fill a 2-liter jug or a big jug of water for your day. Yeah. And you make sure you drink that water through the day. That's the first thing. And if you can do that consistently, now you can move on to the next one, right? But that's the number one habit, hydration. But It starts there. It's the base, like the most basic thing, hydration, right? And the worst thing is that we neglect the basics on a daily basis. Most people walk around dehydrated, and that's not good.
I would think it's a crazy stat. It's like 82% of the world walks around in dehydration. I mean, again, some are lacking water in some of those countries, but
yes, but for us, North America,
you have no excuse.
We turn on a faucet and there's drinking water coming out of it. I mean, that's one of my gratitudes too daily. It was like, I'm so grateful for having water on tap. Yeah. That's insane. We just turn it off and there's clean water coming out. I have to do nothing. Mm-hmm. It's insane. People take that for granted.
Yeah. And we don't use it. The two biggest things, look, people talk about this all the time. I say, hey, the biggest performance enhancing drugs on the planet, sleep and water. Like, yep. Those two things are going to absolutely positively change your life, man. It's so beautiful. I
thought it was NO Explode and creatine.
Right. Yeah. Let me grab another Red Bull and let me grab another Monster and let me, it's ridiculous, God. Man. It is. Yep. It is. The 5-hour energy. I'm like, no, the opposite. You need the opposite of all that. So yeah, no, I love it, man. I love what you're about. I love it. So to talk to us a little bit, because, in our lives growing up, and we've touched on a little bit, but where have role models and mentors played a part in your life? And then, because you are that now, you are a true mentor, a true role model, whether I know it's not, we set out to do those things, but the book, the programs, the methodologies that you're sharing, the cookbooks, all of it is role modeling and mentoring people. So where did that show up in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm an observer. So I try to look, I never followed someone like to a T. There's some people who need that framework and in my life, I was never a religious guy because I don't like to adhere to a specific framework. And I have spirituality, but I'm not into a framework. And I was always like that, but I tried to collect the information from my environment and make sense of it on my own. That was always my way. And I was, when I did that, and as I moved forward, I had some people that were more influential than others who influenced me or helped me in different ways. I talked about Lee Hayward, who made me discover direct response marketing and the world of online possibilities, and just blew my mind. I had the opportunity to partner up with Matt Gallant, who's the CEO at Bioptimizers, and I was fortunate enough to have him as a business partner, but also as a close friend. He's one of the smartest and sharpest entrepreneurs and humans that I know, and truly influenced my life. My wife, I've been with my wife for 12 years, and she's a great mentor of mine. I watch her, I'm like, what? I'm still amazed at the things that she does, but I feed very organically out of different things, my grandfather, my parents. I'm not, as I said, there's not one thing, one person's like, oh, I did. Like, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar and I was totally blown away, and not Tony, that's my God. I was never like that. So it was just a collection of small things. And I try to feed off, my environment as much as possible. I try to put myself in an environment that I know is going to make me grow. So always I'm more of a fan of the environment rather than just an individual, one person. It's just like, okay, let's put yourself in an environment that you're going to be able to grow in, and however growth means to you. I live in a rural community here. Some people would say, well, how do you grow in a rural, small town, 16,000 people? I mean, there's no crazy high level tech entrepreneurs here or anything like that. But guess what? I've grown in multiple other ways than that. And for me, because I know that was the type of environment, or I would say, environment or place that I wanted to be in or to live in. And I do that. And my role models now are I mean, I'm very interested now in rural asset-based community development, things like that, like how to develop rural communities for sustainable, economic resilience in some ways. And there's people, like, I look at what they do in Iceland with the fishing and how they produce more products now with the amount of fish that they catch. And it's very relevant here because fishing is huge. What they do on Fogo Island in Newfoundland too. I mean, turning that community around. Weird things, but that's my thing. I love that. So my entrepreneurial career always evolved, and it's what I look at.
No, man, I love that, because the same thing goes. It's new challenges, it's new things, it's things that because as it piques your interest, it keeps you going, right? It lights me up. I have that question for people all the time, like, man, what lights you up? And you just said it. You're like, all these different things that I'm now becoming. And I hope people heard this, is that it doesn't have to be a person. It doesn't have to be someone physical, right? It can be other things. You can get books and learn from others and take bits and pieces along the way, and then create the best version of you, right?
Yeah.
Like, create you from all these other people. Don't be somebody else. Don't look at somebody else and go, oh, I'm going to be them. No, take what you love, take what you like, adopt things, and move to the next and learn, right?
I don't believe that there's like, sometimes it can happen, but that, like the Karate Kid, like Mr. Miyagi thing, and you meet your mentor, like, it can happen, but in reality, I think, like, if you need to trust yourself to do, like, to find that information, not waiting for someone. I think that's a problem now too. You see that, like, in coaching, like you probably see that too. They just want you to magically upload all your knowledge into their brain so they can get faster results, but it starts with you, right? So you got to understand and be true to your own style and what you truly want, right? So, it's hard to do sometimes. It has to do with your, I would say, confidence and self-worth, and you build that over time,
Yeah, you build that over time. It's not given to you.
No.
You build it. Like, that's what people need to know. Self-worth is something I build. It's not something that someone gives to you. Mm-hmm. It's not your parents, right? No. It's not people giving you self-worth. You have to build it by showing up, by getting your ass out of bed when you say you're going to get out of bed, by eating the way you say you're going to eat, by showing up to work on time and being the best at whatever that is, right? It rolls over into other aspects of your life.
And I think you need to be at ease with change. You need to be okay with the fact that, shit is going to hit the fan sometimes, and things are not going to be always great. And life is a great game of figuring things out. But, everything is figure outable. Sometimes it takes a bit longer than other times. I mean, but yeah, man, it's you have to trust the process,
Yeah, I love it. All right, let's transition. This is the part of the show that I call quick hitters. Just going to be a word. I'm going to give it to you, and then you tell me what comes to mind when you hear it. Okay. Fun. Ready? Yeah. First quick hitter word: discipline.
Routine.
How does discipline show up in your life?
Being consistent with the small things. Do the small thing that matters well, and the rest will take care of itself.
Woo! I love it. Yes. All right. Quick hitter number 2, final one: impact. How does that hit you, and what do you want to leave?
I think about this often, impact, and I feel like this word is being abused a little bit. People want impact, and they use that as not a selfish, way, but they use that word to justify their personal ambitions. I don't think impact is something that you can plan per se. Again, it goes back to what I said about discipline. It's doing the small thing that matters and doing that consistently. And if you do it well for a long period of time, you will have impact. It's not about the things that you say, it's about the things that you do and that you keep doing, and as long as it's aligned with your values, with your strengths, with what you do well, this is how you're going to have impact. And you're not going to realize you're having impact until actually you have impacted people.
Wow. I love it, man. It's so well said. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And that's fantastic, man. Dave, listen, I cannot thank you enough, brother. Like, such good stuff. So I know there's going to be people. How can people reach out to you? Where do they find you? How do you want them to connect?
If you want to connect with me personally, Instagram at daveruel.com, at Dave Ruel, or my website, daveruel.com, has all the links to what I do. If you want to take a look at the book, effic.co or donbynoonbook.com, you can find it. We're actually handing out free copies right now of the book. We have limited quantities for that. Yeah, that's pretty much like where you can get a hold of me. And if you have any questions, like, hit me up. I always reply on social media. So unless you pitch me, you business pitch out of the bat. Yeah, I need to date a little bit.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. So many great, just if you're listening, rewind, man. There's so much gold in there. I hope people listen, not just for the words, but the truth of what you said, Dave, and what you're bringing to the world, man. I'm super grateful that our paths have crossed, and I look forward to many more conversations, buddy. So
thanks,
I appreciate you, man.
Really appreciate it a lot, my friend. Thanks so much. And it means a lot what you just said.
Yeah, good, man. All right, you guys, until next time, get out there and be the best version of you.